In this video, we're going to be talking about obstructions and the rules that apply when we encounter them. Then we're going to look at a couple of situations that are very relevant to SL-ISAF racers. Now here's the definition of an obstruction. An object that a boat could not pass without changing course substantially if the boat were sailing directly towards it and one of her hull lengths from it. Let's see exactly what this means. If you point directly at something with the bow of your boat and then imagine it was only one hull length away, would you have to make a big course change to get around it? If the answer is yes, then it is an obstruction. Note that this does not mean that you have to be one hull length from it before it becomes an obstruction. Now here's a channel marker like you see all over the Blake Sea. Granted, if you do hit it, it's going to ring your bell, but you only have to make a small course change to avoid it. This would not count as an obstruction. Now here the obstruction is a lighthouse on an island. There's not much doubt that this is in fact an obstruction. Now you have to be aware that this lighthouse could also be a mark on a race course if it happens to be listed as such in the race instructions. There are different sets of rules depending on how this island is treated, if it's an obstruction or it is a mark, and we will explain both of those just a bit later. Let's assume that this is simply an obstruction. Now the rules that deal with this type of obstruction are very easy and very logical. First, the right-of-way boat can choose to pass this obstruction on either side. Now if the boats are overlapped, the boat that will pass closest to the obstruction is the inside boat, and the other is the outside boat. The outside boat has to allow room for the inside boat to clear the obstruction. Now, you don't want to scrape your sailing buddy off of the rocks, and I guess even if you did want to, it's not allowed. Now here is another example of an obstruction, and it's going to look very familiar to our regular Sliff racers. A houseboat, and it happens to be one of several that are moored adjacent to the starting area of the Skagway start line. Now it is unusual to have obstructions like this in the starting area, but they do make it more challenging. Here's where they become a bit of a problem. This is like Cinderella's stepsister with the size 12 foot trying to squeeze into the size 4 glass slipper. No matter how you push it, it's just not going to fit. These four boats are all overlapped as they approach the houseboat. Now each boat is supposed to allow room for the adjacent inside boat all the way out to this fourth boat, which needs to make room for all three boats to clear the houseboat. Now to make matters worse, this houseboat sits right on a sim line. It's a great reason to avoid a place where everyone has the same idea. Just as an aside, the boat that ended up being the first to cross the start line is this boat. Saw the mess forming, decided to resort to Plan B and avoid it all. Turned out to be a good decision. Here is another obstruction with which we deal all the time at SL-ISAF. This is the shoreline on both sides of the channel leading south from the Skagway start line. It's frankly the mother of all obstructions and can only be passed on one side. Now where this is always a big problem is at the first tack after the boats cross the starting line. Boats are bunched up, sailing toward the shoreline, throw in a couple of layers of overlap, and it's time to drag out the popcorn and watch the show. Let's look at an example of the problem, and this was filmed at one of the races just a few weeks ago at Sliff. All three of these boats are on starboard tack, and all three are sailing close hauled. Now the boat with the red sails is windward, and is also clear astern of both of these inside boats. Now at this point, she's required to keep clear of the two boats that are clear ahead. At this point, the middle boat is overlapped to leeward by the inside boat, and again, according to the normal right-of-way rules, is required to keep clear. As the boats approach the shoreline, this inside boat is still the right-of-way boat, so why can't she just tack? Well, the problem is that once these boats pass head to wind on their tack, they're required to keep clear of all other boats. Then, after they reach their new close-hauled course, they're on port tack and now are required to keep clear of a starboard tack boat. Under normal rules, this outside boat may want to continue quite a bit further on starboard tack. There is no way either of these boats can tack, lose their right of way once they complete their tacks, and then still remain clear of this outside boat. Since splattering your boat against the shoreline is never a very good plan, we need something else. And this something else is called Rule 20, room to tack at an obstruction. Under this rule, a boat approaching an obstruction like this can hail for room to tack and avoid not only the obstruction, but also a boat on the same tack. Now she may hail by shouting in local chat, water, or room. Now in order to do this, the obstruction must require a substantial course change to avoid, and the boat must be sailing close hauled. Let's go back to our previous example and you will see that both conditions are met. So here is how it should go. The inside boat hails for room to tack and waits for a response. The middle boat is trapped by the outside boat and can't tack, so he hails the outside boat for room to tack. The outside boat looks at it, sees there's not room, and simply tacks away. The other boats follow in turn. Under this rule, the boats tack away in time to allow the inside boats to clear the obstruction. If the situation was just a bit different, instead of tacking away, the hailed boat could have made a response of "you tack." Now this response tells the hailing boat that there is room to complete their tack and comply with its obligations after it reaches close hauled. If this hailed boat makes the wrong choice, then it may have to maneuver to avoid the hailing boat. Now in this clip, the boats are not so tightly packed. At this point, the hailing boat has just arrived on its new close-hauled course and is now on port tack. The room to tack and avoid promised by the response of "you tack" is probably not there. The responding boat correctly tacks to avoid. The trailing boat elects to slide around the stern. Once the tacking boat reaches close hauled, if there is room to tack back and avoid the oncoming boat, it is required to do so. Remember, the response of "you tack" does not relieve the tacking boat of the obligation to remain clear once it completes its tack away from the obstruction. Now, so far the obstructions have been pretty obvious: a lighthouse, a shoreline. But here's one that may cause just a bit of head scratching. There is another part of the definition of obstruction, and if you wade through the not and the unless, which always make me a bit nervous, you will see that in fact a right-of-way boat is actually treated as an obstruction. Well, what does that change? If you have two boats approaching on different tacks, port tack boat must remain clear of a starboard tack boat. The port tack boat can go astern or it can tack to parallel. What happens when we include a third boat? Let's look at the right-of-way. Both of these port tack boats must remain clear of the starboard tack boat, but there's also a right-of-way rule that applies to the two boats on the same tack and overlapped. In this case, the windward boat shall remain clear of the leeward boat. So as they approach, let's apply the obstruction rules. The right-of-way boat of this pair may pass the obstruction on either side. So it can pass astern or it can tack to parallel. Exactly the same two choices it had before. However, if this boat elects to pass astern and this windward boat chooses to follow and maintains overlap, then the windward boat becomes the inside boat and must be allowed room to pass the obstruction. But what if the right-of-way boat decides it wants to pass on the other side, which is really a tack to parallel? Just like in our situation approaching the shoreline, it can't tack under normal rules because of the windward boat. So applying the same rule as we did at the shoreline, the right-of-way boat simply hails for room to tack, the windward boat tacks away, and the leeward boat follows. Now if the windward boat was trailing a little bit, it might also respond, you tack, keep clear of the tacking boat, and choose to cross the other side of the obstruction. Now I know all of this can be a bit overwhelming, particularly for a new racer, but if you grasp the concept that all of these rules are designed for just a couple of things, to keep two boats from smacking into each other, and to keep one boat from forcing another boat to smack into something else, be it a shoreline, a lighthouse, or another boat. And yeah, once you understand this concept, all of this stuff is actually pretty logical. Until next time, dance like nobody's watching. You only go around once.